Episode 2 opens on October the 20th, 1984. Around this time, we are told that Paul has vacated and silently moved out. There was no goodbye, there was nothing, there was no closure. One day he just up and left. This was soon after the incident where he witnessed the entity along with Chris. Now, Chris finds himself stuck alone in this room because he cannot leave the college. He got into this college because of an athletic scholarship, and his father is immensely proud of him for having earned his way into college. And for him, his father's approval is extremely important. Because of this, he feels that he cannot just escape from this college because there are other realities that are keeping him anchored to the situation. So he resorts to sleeping in the common room and in other places wherever he can just go to sleep for the night rather than spending time alone in his own room. Because there are no other vacant rooms either that he can just shift to. This goes on for about like a month or so, and it begins to take a toll on his mental and physical health. Jeff, being the good friend that he is, wants to help Chris out. So he suggests that they invite contact with this entity so that they can understand what is going on here. Chris is reluctant to do so. He does not want to contact anything supernatural. But because he feels duty bound to Jeff as a friend, he wants to honor his suggestion. And as a result of this, he agrees. He says, fine, let's try to do this. That's where the famous photo of him with his hand outstretched comes from. So he calls out, he invites the entity, he says, come and tell me why are you here? Why is it that you're here? And nothing much happens for a while. Now, just before they start this contact with the entity, Jeff brings a thermometer along with him. Even though initially there was not much that happened in response to their invitation, at some point, all of a sudden, the temperature of the room drops, and they notice that change in the thermometer. And then, suddenly, the whole power in the building blows out. Complete blackout. At this point, Jeff uses the flash in his camera, and he takes a photo of the room. When Jeff develops this photo and it comes out, he sees that in one of the photos, in a corner, he can see a whitish skeletal system of sorts. He can see the rib cage, the bones, and the pelvic bone. So it seems like a person who's standing in a corner, but it's like an X-ray. It's just a skeletal system that is sort of in a blurry whitish pop in the corner. Even though there is evidence now in that photograph, Chris's logical mind is embarrassed of admitting that he has been sleeping in common rooms for fear of a spiritual entity. Chris requests Jeff to keep this revelation of the ghostly entity to himself, to not share this information or this photograph with anyone else. But as it happens, Jeff does end up sharing it with some of his friends, and that news just spreads like wildfire among all of the students. Although some people are empathetic to him and they feel sorry for the experiences that Chris is having, but college kids being who they are, young and inexperienced, not all of them are able to extend sympathy to someone who is seeing ghostly apparitions. He earns the epithet of ghostly boy, and people start to mock him and they start to tease him. This adds added stress to what he has already been going through. This ends up straining his relationship with Jeff. Now, in this episode, we see the filmmakers felt that it was important to share with us a little backstory to Jeff and to Linda. Because Jeff has been trying to solve this problem for Chris. He's been trying to understand what's going on with him. And Linda also, when everybody finds out and he's alone and he feels friendless, Linda comes up to him and he says, no, I'm there for you. And she also tries to help him in this time of need. So we get a little backstory on the two people and why they're trying so hard to help Chris with the situation that he's dealing. We learn that both Jeff and Linda individually have had some traumatic experiences or brush with death at a very young age. We are told that in 1978, around the age of 15, Jeff was doing this part-time job of dropping newspapers to people's houses. He was a newspaper boy. One such morning, when he goes to drop a newspaper at someone's house, which was in a sort of slightly isolated area, he notices that someone is sitting in the car outside the house. So he goes to check out the house and he sees that the owner of the house is sitting inside the car and he is literally living his last breath. He catches this old man dying in his car. So at the age of 15, to witness someone giving out their last breath, that was a life-altering experience for him. That opened the door to his empathy for Chris's experience at present. Likewise, we are told that Linda also had something similar to share with Chris. She tells him about the time when a few years back she was in charge of a couple of younger girls and she was taking care of them during the camp. So one night there's lightning and thunderstorm, and so she asks the girls who are outside to go inside the cabins and to close the doors and to keep themselves safe. So as soon as two girls go inside one such cabin, that whole cabin catches fire because of lightning falling on it. And those two girls end up dying. She talks about how the nurse who came there for emergency rescue was giving CPR to one of the girls, and she told Linda to give CPR to another girl. So they both are giving CPR to these girls, trying to save them. Unfortunately, both of these girls pass away. So this experience of watching someone die is just like Jeff had this experience of witnessing death unexpectedly. Linda too has this experience of witnessing death unexpectedly. So because both Jeff and Linda have had some backstory of opening this gate to the other side to life, they are now able to empathize with Chris's experiences and they hold his hand through this ordeal. At this point, we see that Jeff tries to repair his friendship with Chris. He apologizes to him and Chris accepts the apology. Jeff suggests that he do more research on the historical background of Geneseo and the area itself to find out what is there in history that can be connected to the present events, to the present experiences that Chris is having. They both are reluctant to use words like ghost or spirit in public, so they decide to give it a name. Chris comes up with the name Tommy. Jeff suggests recording evidence of Tommy's presence so that they can get help for the experiences that Chris has been having. Jeff arranges with his roommate Craig to let Chris sleep in their room for one night, since he's been sleeping in the common room and he's not slept well at all. And surprisingly, Craig agrees. That night when Chris is sleeping, he's sleeping on the floor that night. Even though he only gets to sleep on the floor, he's glad not to be sleeping in any common room and he's glad to be having the company of these two friends. That night, he wakes up screaming from a dream where he feels like he's being dragged through the forest, where he goes running usually. We are told that Chris sees running as a form of therapy. He uses it to clear out his mind. He keeps himself sane by running regularly. So now he has this dream that he's being dragged through the forest where he usually goes running. After this incident, experiences with Tommy escalate. He starts encountering breezes, noises, moving objects, and sudden drop of room temperature more often. His end of the semester results come out and the results are not great. Now, not only are his mental and physical health affected, but also his marks are dropping and he needs to keep his marks up to a certain level so that he can continue to attend this college on the scholarship that he's entered. He's put on academic probation due to a drop in grades. He's running in the forest one morning when he encounters the same entity that he and Paul had witnessed in their room. This becomes a final straw and he realizes that he can't continue living like this, so he stops running in the forest alone. At this point, he's failing his classes. He's mentally and physically exhausted. He decides to seek refuge in Christ. He recalls that his mother is a devout Catholic and they grew up going to the church regularly. So he goes to meet with Father Charles Manning. We also see Father Charles Manning himself speaking in the interviews. When Chris goes to meet Father Charles Manning, he brings Jeff's journal around him because Jeff is used to taking a lot of notes and researching and keeping a record. So he shares Jeff's journal to Father Manning and he explains his situation, his experiences to him. Now, initially, Father Manning is dismissive of his story and he thinks that this is all nonsense. He doesn't believe in all of this. But as soon as Chris is dismissed by Charles Manning, that his experiences are not real, Chris bursts out crying. Now, seeing a young man, healthy, fit, and strong, sitting in front of him and crying, weeping like a little boy, he begins to realize that maybe there is some truth to what Chris is sharing. So just to be sure, he decides to check out Chris's room. He goes with Chris and he takes holy water with him and the book Pastoral Care of the Sick with him. There, he blesses the room with holy water and prays from the pastoral care of the sick. After that, everything sort of becomes quiet and the room feels lighter. It is no longer cold because even Father Manning mentions the room was extraordinarily cold. So that was something that was very strange that he noticed. But once the prayer was done, the room was warmer, the air felt lighter, and everything was pleasant. After that, for quite some time, there were no issues. It was as if the whole problem had been solved and Chris was just living his life peacefully. One night, Chris and Jeff make plans to hang out at Beth's room. Beth goes out to change her outfit and they keep waiting for her and she doesn't come. So they get a little worried thinking, why is she not here? So they go to check out her room to see if she's all right. And there they see that she's lying on the floor catatonic. When she comes out of the stupor, she looks straight at Chris and she says, "It kept calling out your name."